Today I'm going to continue on from the last video, which was this Grojsman accord we made. In this video I'm going to go and add some more raw materials to it to make some combinations, to make some more blends, and then we're going to go and see what those smell like. So in this video I'm going to guide you through the process of me first planning out what I want to make, actually making those formulas, and then finally we're going to go and see what they smell like. So stay tuned. Firstly, I'm going to go and write down my ideas for the different variations of the accord that we can make. So firstly, I wanted to take the top 3 suggestions from the comments in the last video. One of the suggestions was to increase the galaxolide and the isoe super relative to the hedione and the alpha isomethylionone. The intention behind this was to see if it smells more masculine rather than feminine, so we'll see if that works out or not. The next suggestion was to try adding bergamot, which is one of the most commonly used top notes, and it also blends well with a lot of things. So this makes a lot of sense to me as well, because this Grojsman accord is also used as a base for a lot of different perfumes and it's meant to work with a lot of different notes. So in theory, the two should be able to go together quite well. Maybe that adds a nice top note generic dimension to the base, which is also reusable. Finally, another suggestion was to exchange the isoe super for timber silk. If you don't know what the difference is between these two things, essentially they're actually the same thing. It's just that timber silk contains a higher concentration of what's called in chemistry the gamma isomer. So it's something just specific to this raw material, but essentially the active molecule has different isomers and it's a mixture in the raw material. It's not just a single thing. And one of these is the gamma isomer, and that's the one that's meant to have the most kind of impact. So exchanging the isoe super for the timber silk should have an effect in terms of the smell. Finally, I had some ideas of my own. So firstly, one thing I really noticed when making that accord originally is how it had a slight kind of rose facet to it, and I really thought this was something worth exploring, so I wanted to go and add some rose. So what I chose was the Rose Jivco base, which is what I usually use for rose because I don't actually have any rose just because it's so expensive. But this Rose Jivco base is really nice and I think you can use it nice and easily. So I thought it would be a good idea to try this out with the Grojsman accord to see what happens. Next, thinking back to the original Trésor perfume, I noted that on the internet it said that it had notes of peach and pineapple in it, so I thought it would be interesting to recreate something along these lines and see how it worked with the accord. For the peach, I took aldehyde C14, which is a really classic note used for giving a peach effect. It's by no means the only way to get peach, and it's not a perfect peach note either, but it is something that can give a peachy effect, so I thought I would try this out. And then I also thought that we could use that pineapple accord that we made in one of the other videos, and then we could go and add that to it as well. Finally, I was thinking about how I don't seem to perceive the galaxolide that well, so I thought, how about trying to exchange that with another musk? The musks which I've had the most success with in the past are probably exaltalide and ethylene brassylate. But recently I've been having a look into Velvione and testing this out a few times on the scent strip, so I thought this would be a good opportunity to actually test it out in a context. So I thought we could replace the galaxolide with Velvione and see what effect that had on the accord. So now we've done that, I actually want to go and write the formulas for my variations on the Grojsman accord. So I'm actually going to firstly just make a category to organize all of these. Later on, I may go and change the name of this category, but for now, I just want to have it there so I can put everything in one place, essentially. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to that Trésor version of the Grojsman accord, because that's the one I preferred, and I'm going to go and duplicate that to make a new version. So let's just call it 1 for now. And I'm just going to go set that to that new category so that we can have it organized in this section. So I'm basically going to go and make 2 more of these, so we've got 3 in total, and the reason for that is because we've got, I think, 3 versions of the formula which are just variations. So firstly we have the timber silk. In this version all we're doing is changing the isoe super for some timber silk. So we're just going to go and get that, and then we're going to put it back down to that 10% dilution. So this is a pretty simple change. Next, we have the version where we wanted to increase the galaxolide. and apparently that one was going to be more masculine. So looking at the levels here, what have we got? So I think the question here really is just how much do we actually go and increase those things? I would say, how about we do something like roughly double them? That should give us some kind of noticeable effect. So how about we say this galaxolide is 0.7 grams, and then the ISOE Super is something like 0.6. And then we've got a new formula. Even though the weights change, we don't really care about that so much. The main thing is that the percentages have changed. So if we go to the original one, and then we look at the new one, how much change has there been? So the galaxolide's gone from 33 to 41. I still think that that change probably isn't that great. So I'll probably go a bit further. Maybe I'll actually reduce these ones down a bit as well. So maybe this will go down to 0.05, sorry. And then we could also take down the ionone, especially as that's one of the things that probably is a bit more feminine. So let's bring that down to something like 0.15 grams. And yeah, so this this version of the formula might smell a bit different. I certainly think that the percentages look like they should be fairly changed. So the ionone's gone down from what, 10% there? Originally it was 28%. So at this point, I think it's a fairly big difference. So I think this probably will be suitable to try out. So let's go into the final version of the formula and let's call it Velvione. Obviously these names, they're not necessarily good names, but considering that most of these experiments will probably fail anyway, as is normally the case in perfumery, we can always go and rename these, delete them, do whatever at a later date. So for now I'm just going to keep it simple because I know roughly what's going on. So let's take that ISOE Super and let's change that out for Velvione. And we're going to leave the same amount, but we're going to make sure that dilution remains the same at 10%. So next we want to make a few more formulas. This time we want to go and actually make some formulas that are the combinations as such. So in this case, I'm going to go and now find that base that we made earlier. And then I'm going to go and add in the other ingredient as well. So we're going to go set those dilutions down to 10% as well, because we're going to be making this whole trial run at 10%. And then as for the proportions, I think probably with all of these experiments, given that the Grojsman accord is traditionally used at a high percentage in the perfume, and it should form this kind of base, I think we probably want that to be most of what we're doing. Then we kind of want to use these auxiliary raw materials as just something to kind of garnish it as such. So let's do something like 0.2 grams. Now obviously I have no idea what is going to be the right proportions for this, so I'm just thinking for a trial this kind of makes sense, because while most of it is going to be the Grojsman accord, there will still be hopefully well enough of the extra material or materials that we're putting in order to see some kind of effect. So this is the bergamot version. For the rose, I think I'll just go and do the same thing. So again, we'll probably do 1 gram here, and then we'll go to 0.2. And then, actually though, I have to say, the thing about the rose is it is quite strong generally. So I really don't think we would actually need so much in this case, just because in my experience with the rose Jivco, it really has the ability to overpower something. So actually I'm going to do 4 times less. I'm just going to start with 0.05 grams, and it doesn't sound like a lot, but obviously we can always make another trial blend with more of it, so we'll see what happens. And obviously I've set the dilutions to 100, so we want to make those 10% because we don't want to be using the pure raw materials. I don't want to waste that much raw materials on this. I just want to use my pre-diluted 10% ones, and also they're easier to work with. So now we've got that down to 10%, that's good. Finally then, we're going to do the pineapple and the peach version. So again, we're going to add our basic Grojsman accord, and then we're also going to go and add the pineapple. So that will be the accord we made in the pineapple accord video. And finally, we're going to go and look for the aldehyde C14. So let's just type that, 14. And then once again, we're going to change those all down to 10%. Actually, with the pineapple claude, I don't think I want that, and that's simply because I don't use it very often, and I don't have it already at 10%, and to be honest, I can't be bothered to go and make up a 10% dilution. Obviously, I can do that in the future if needed, but for now, what I do remember is I've still got the original version of the pineapple accord, and that I think was, let's have a look, it's 6.4%. So there's no reason that I can't just start this trial blend using that 6.4% that I've already got. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to go into the pineapple accord. I'm just going to let Formulair know that I've actually got that 6.4% dilution. And then we're going to go back into the formulas and we're going to change that pineapple accord to 6.4%. So again, let's just go with the 1 gram for the Grojsman accord to be consistent. And then the question is, how strong do we have these other things? So both of these are pretty strong. Like Aldehyde C14, you can use it easily at a 1% dilution. I would probably assume something similar for the pineapple accord, just because I remember from when we made that video at 6.4%, it already smelled super, super strong. So I really don't think we need to add much of either of these to the formula. So what we probably want to do now is, well, I would say we should have them fairly balanced. It doesn't have to be perfect, but given that the pineapple accord is already weaker than the Aldehyde C14, I'm going to add a bit more weight of that. So let's just say we add a 0.1 gram total between these two, just because I think that would be a good place to start at least. I really don't know if that would be too strong or weak, but I think it's not going to be too far off. So let's say the pineapple accord then we'll do at 0.6, not 660, 0.0066 grams. The reason I do that quantity is because when you've diluted stuff to 10%, for me, 0.066 grams is usually 4 drops, so that makes it really easy to weigh out. And then for the Aldehyde C14, let's do 0.033 grams. So that's usually 2 drops. So again, that should be quite easy. And as you can see, these are now fairly close to each other. So that extra dilution, but the effect of us having added more of it means in the end, we've got 0.38% of that and 0.3% of that. For now, for me, that is close enough. And if we want to go and increase those or decrease them, I mean, we're not going to know until we've actually tried it out. So let's just go and make these ones up for now. Okay, so now we finished all those trial blends, let's actually go and see what they're like. So I've had the windows open in my room for the past hour, and I put the pipettes in the bin, which means the room's had a nice chance to ventilate. I was just busy with some other stuff, and now I've come back and I'm ready to kind of smell the stuff with a fresh nose, without all the smells basically that were from when I was making it. So what I'm going to firstly do is I'm actually going to take a scent strip for each of the things that we made, and I'm going to dip those in advance. And what I think I'm going to do, especially for these ones, is because some of the variations are quite subtle in the Grojsman Accord itself. So when we try to increase the Isoe Super, or when we try to replace the Galaxide with the Velvione, and also the version with the Timber Silk, I think those ones should be quite subtle to detect. And I think for those, it's probably going to be best to smell those last, i.e. leave a bit of a longer time for those to be on the scent strip, in order to kind of just allow the alcohol to evaporate and be able to get a good picture of what they actually smell like. So I'm going to go and dip all of those ones first. I'm just going to take a holder for the scent strip, and I'm going to leave each one next to the bottle so I can remember what it is. Obviously later on it would be good if I went and actually labeled these, but for now I'm just gonna leave it next to the scent strip so I can remember. I can already, just by dipping these in their vials, I can already smell some of the more diffusive element of the kind of perfume coming through, especially the alpha isomethyl which is that kind of pink fuzzy kind of smell. And that's something which is really diffusive, but also causes olfactory fatigue quite quickly. So basically, yeah, I just want to be careful with these, so I'm not kind of sniffing them like 5 times each, because I think by the time I get to the last one, I'm just not going to be able to have a good impression of what it is. Obviously, probably later on I'll go and smell these more times, kind of more spaced apart, so I've got a clearer idea. Sometimes if you go smell things the next day as well, it can have an effect. But just so for the sake of the video, I'm just going to kind of go through everything now and let you guys know what I think about it. So, all right, let's start off then with the blends where we've actually gone and added something to the Grojsman Accord. So I've got this one here, which is the bergamot, which is one of the subscribers commented and said we should add some bergamot. So let's see what that smells like. Now, that's quite interesting. So yeah, I mean, that's nice, like for sure. In terms of the level of the bergamot, I think actually that was probably dosed quite decently. So for sure you could smell that that citrus side of it coming through, and you could smell the linalool, that which is one of the constituents of bergamot. If you've got your own aroma chemicals, one you might have is linalool, and that is a part of bergamot which you might be able to smell. For sure I can smell that in this, but you do smell this kind of, I wouldn't say orange, but this kind of definitely this kind of citrus aspect coming through. And in terms of balance, yeah, it's not too bad. So do I think this is good? Would I want to use it? Yeah, I think it could be used. I don't think on its own it's something complete for sure. But for sure I think as a combination it works fine. It doesn't like stand out or anything, but I think it works fine. So I think this one for sure, bergamot and Grojsman Accord, I can see them working in a perfume together. Next I'll go for the rose. So this one is the Rose Givco, which is that rose base from Givaudan. Now this one already, it's crazy because I just smell so much rose. So I know I already said in the formula that I was gonna take the dose down a bit, but I'm not sure if I actually took it down enough. That said though, I think I really think this has added something to the rose on its own, because I remember the Rose Givco on its own smells a bit more kind of just like rose petals, you know, Turkish delight. This has something else to it, you know. It's got this kind of like slight fruitiness, I don't know, like violetness. I mean, I guess that's coming from the Ionone. But it's definitely got this extra dimension, and Yeah, for sure I'm a fan of that. I think actually I would say it's pretty successful. For sure I'd consider like actually using something like this as the base for a perfume. If I was going to go down that route, what I would probably do is actually decrease the amount of rose. So instead of using a 10% dilution of rose, I'll probably use a 1% dilution of rose and see where that gets me and start changing things around from there. Right, so then we've got the final one of the ones where instead of changing the accord, we're adding to the accord. And the final one of those was this idea I had for the pineapple and the peach. So let's see what that's like. Yeah, okay. Oh, that's pretty nice actually. Yeah, that's not bad. For sure, way too much aldehyde C14. And I think the way you usually notice that is when it starts to smell a bit, it's got this kind of distinctive waxy smell. It's kind of the smell that you get if you smell aldehyde C14 out of the bottle instead of properly diluted. It's a lot more kind of waxy than what I would say is kind of peachy. So for sure we can go down on that. Actually, in terms of the pineapple accord though, I think the level on that is pretty nice. Actually, it gives a really nice pineapple effect in that context. So yeah, for sure. I don't know what the perfume Trésor is like, but if it was anything like this, then yeah, I can definitely see why that would be a great perfume. So for sure, this formula is not complete, but as like a sketch, as a little concept, I feel like with a few more iterations of balancing the levels and then maybe finding a few other things to add to it, I think it could be really nice. Cool. Okay, right, so that's the 3 where we've added things. Now let's look at the 3 where we've just changed things around. So these are going to be a bit more subtle. And again, for example, so let's just take this one here, which is the Velvione. I do wonder how much I'll actually be able to see this effect because Velvione is very much a base note. So it's something I would expect to already notice, especially after it's been on the scent strip for maybe a few days. But I'm going to see what it's like anyway. So, okay, well, you know what, for sure that's a massive change. So I don't know what I was just saying. But yeah, so to me, Velvione smells like when you've just done your ironing, kind of like the cloves, the hot like cloves, and it smells like that to me. And this for sure gives that kind of smell. Does it work? Yeah, I think it works. I think it's definitely too much Velvione. Especially given the fact that I have a hard time picking up the Galaxolide. Having suddenly all of that musk perceptible to me, somehow like it almost smells completely different. Yeah, I would say maybe it's a bit much, but yeah, I mean, I think I wouldn't say it's bad. It's just the Velvione's too strong. I think again, it tells me Velvione could be used in a perfume with the Grojsman Accord, though maybe the Velvione shouldn't actually be a key part of the Grojsman Accord. It seems more like a combination rather than fitting right into the Accord for me. So next we had that suggestion, which was someone said, how about if we increase the Isoi Super and the Galaxolide relative to the Ironone and the Hedione? And that might make it more masculine. So I've got this one here, and let's have a look. So for sure the olfactory fatigue is starting to set in because I'm not smelling it as well as I was smelling the first ones for sure. You know what? I'm actually going to come back to this. I'm going to come back to it in like 10 minutes or so I can give you a better evaluation of it. And then we've also got the Timber Silk one. So I'll come back again in like 10 minutes. I'm going to open the windows and then I'm going to come back at you with the last 2. Okay, so it's been like 10 minutes and now I'm back. And we're going to smell these things before it gets too dark. So what have we got? This one is the one with the Galaxolide and the Isoi Super. Yeah, that's quite nice. I mean, for sure you can really smell the Isoi Super. Now the funny thing is, to me, it doesn't change the character that incredibly. Like, you can still for sure smell that it's the same accord. But then, yeah, I would actually say for sure that the effect of the alpha isomethyl ironone being a bit weaker, that's definitely like something that I can kind of note here. And yeah, I guess I would probably see this actually slotting into more of like a woody amber kind of men's fragrance, as opposed to if I was going that rose direction and pushing for something more floral, then yeah, I probably would be pushing that alpha isomethyl because I think that is kind of the link, the bridge that really helps join into that floral element by kind of providing this violet character which can combine with the other florals. So yeah, for sure, in this form, the Accord definitely smells. It's a bit more. It's the floral element to it. It's just been toned down a lot. So I feel like it would really be useful or more usable in situations where you explicitly don't want that floral character. So that's good to know, I guess. Finally, let's do this one, which is the basically replacing the Isoe Super with the Timber Silk. So in theory, this shouldn't smell too much different. And in practice, I don't smell too much different. So for sure, if I leave Timber Silk and Isoe Super on a scent strip next to each other and leave those after a day and then smell them both, I can for sure detect that there is this kind of slight difference between them. I wouldn't say there's anything like too general to say about making that change between the Isoe Super and the Timber Silk. It's not like, from my point of view right now, hey, one's going to do something to your perfume, the other's going to do something else. I just kind of feel like they're both basically pretty much the same, and maybe if there's some very, very tiny aspect of the smell that you're just trying to fine tune, then this is one of the tools that you could use to do it. But apart from that, probably for most cases, especially if you're just really sketching out the kind of combinations that are going to be in your perfume, this change is super minor and something that you don't really need to worry about. Okay, so that was it. Now, I would have loved to have done some more trial blends, but basically that wasn't the time in the end. But maybe, again, we could still look at that in the future. Or even if I don't make another video, I might actually explore some of those anyway. I think my favorite blend that I made was the one where it was just the Grojsman Accord, the Trésor version, added to the Rose Jivco. I really think that combination has something about it. Secondly, after that, I also thought the one with the pineapple and the peach definitely seemed like it had a concept there that was kind of like nice and worth exploring. Though in that case, the trial blend itself wasn't quite so balanced. I felt that there was definitely too much of that aldehyde C14. And so if I was going to continue with that, I would firstly try to balance that, do a new blend, just decreasing that on its own, changing nothing else, and kind of repeating that until I'd felt just those raw materials on their own had become balanced. And then maybe I would think about adding other things. So again, maybe the rose could be added to that, maybe something more like orange or some other kind of notes to kind of complete the composition. I don't know, but for sure that would be an interesting one to do. And then the other things, they were all kind of interesting in their own way. Anyway, so that's it for this video. I really hope you enjoyed it, and I'll probably see you again with another video and doing something else. I don't know what it will be yet, but until then, enjoy your perfumery, and I hope you have a great rest of your week. And yeah, see you next time.